2, 1. And we are live with the social media office hours from Social Fresh. So if you're watching us live on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube today, thank you for joining. I definitely want to have a great discussion today about our focus. Our topic is career development and skill development for social media managers, marketers, digital practitioners in general. And what I'd like to see, we've got a great few experts. If you want to leave a comment on social, it'll pop up for us. We'll see it in the feed. If you want to ask a question, we will also see that. But if you have an insight as well, if you have a tip, if you have a story or something you've learned this year, or kind of a crazy year through 2020, please feel free to jump in with that. Even if you don't have a question, your comments are welcome as well. So let's introduce our panelists for today and switch things up. All right. So Azad, introduce yourself. What are you working on? Let people know what your focus is these days at Consumer Reports.
Awesome. Jason, thanks for having us. So my name is Azad Yakatali. I'm the community manager at Consumer Reports. Basically, my job duties there are to kind of build a community. So it doesn't really fit into that job title. I'm not really filtering in and moderating comments as much, but I am trying to build a community and build a tribe there for Consumer Reports. We are shifting from a much older demographic to trying to lean into a millennial and Gen X demographic. So I'm part of that, leading that effort on social. Outside of my work at Consumer Reports, I do have a little podcast that I just got off the ground. It's called OK Intern. And
Great name.
Thank you. And it's talking about the struggle that we face working in social. So I don't really lean into strategy and tactics that much. It's more so about mental well-being, career growth. So today's topic is really near and dear for me.
Nicole's commenting on Facebook. Awesome lineup. Good early encouragement. Tiffany, let us know what you're working on. You're at Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Yes.
What's taking up your time these days?
Oh my gosh. So today is Giving Tuesday. So happy Giving Tuesday. It's a big day for nonprofits. As Jason mentioned, I lead out the social practice at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and we serve over 4 million kids and teens across the nation. We have over 4,000 clubhouses that serve primarily for after school care. But of course, during COVID, some things have changed, and a lot of clubs have shifted their service model to help students who are not able to access internet or don't have meals available, things like that. So we've been very busy. But if you are so inclined today, please start a Facebook fundraiser and support Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Great organization, getting right to the call to action early, like a true marketer. I love it. And then Angelo, lastly, introduce yourself, let people know where you work and what you're up to.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angelo. I am the digital marketing specialist at the Barbara B. Mann Performing Arts Hall. We're a national touring and event space in Fort Myers, Florida. And I dabble in all aspects of digital, including social media, community management, as well as email marketing, taking care of the website, and pretty much everything integrated within for the theater and any of the shows that pass by. And one of the things that we've been working on is really focusing on the local community, because we are very much a local entity within the Southwest Florida area. So my job is focused a little bit more hyper-localized than a little bit more of the national brands. But we have had awesome Broadway shows pass by, like Wicked. Hamilton was here this past year.
Oh, wow.
Miss Saigon. And yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. The big conversation here is career and skill development for social media managers. And I think one of the things we're trying to do is have a conversation around people just not burning out in this industry, because there are tons of social media managers that, get caught up in a role or a company where, maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they're overextending themselves, whatever it is, and they're only in social for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they just need to move on to something less stressful in their mind or something like that. I'm a firm believer that social media can be a long-term career, and it can be a rewarding and fulfilling job, but you do have to kind of craft that experience, right? You have to work on that and develop your career and develop your skills. So first question, and I'm Angelo, I'm interested in seeing what you think about this, because you're in an industry just like I am. We do events where you've probably had a lot of chaos this year. How has either your career kind of mindset changed this year, or is there a skill change where you've had to develop crisis communication as a skill that you didn't have to do before this year, something like that? What's 2020 looked like for your career skill development?
Yeah, so just from a background standpoint, I'm a one-person team from a social and digital media side of things. I do have a director of communications and marketing that helps create and curate some of the messaging specifically to what has happened with COVID and the shutdown of Broadway. We have to follow those types of messaging from Broadway and the national tours and to our theater. And us being a theater, we really don't have kind of a message or a brand unless there's a show going on. So that was one of the things that I've been working on a lot, is trying to figure out, okay, what pieces of content can really showcase the theater and the sense of community within the local area. One thing that I've really went all gung-ho this year was video. Before coming into this job, I did some video content for higher education, for my own freelance work, and for college. But I really went for some of creating video content, from creating the content, post-production, everything, including the strategy behind it. Yeah.
And I'll open this up to you guys. You can build on what Angelo is saying, or it makes me think, Angelo, like one of the things we joke about on our Instagram sometimes is just the huge number of skill sets that social media managers need, right? You're mentioning video, like
so many hats.
Video is its own job, right? It's its own team at a lot of companies. So like, what is the decision tree for deciding what skills you should develop for social? And maybe Tiffany, you can answer of what do you think are kind of the most important skills that people need to be investing in? Do they need to focus on crisis communication right now, or is that already kind of built in after 2020? Do they need to focus on video? Like, what's your opinion on kind of the key skills that people need to make sure they're adding to their resume?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it may sound cliche, but just looking to your company's business goals or the organizational goals overall, and then making sure that your skill set matches what you're trying to accomplish from a business perspective. So for me right now, a lot of times there's a lot of project management and more of an integrated marketing approach that I have to take for all of the different business needs, and then like how it all comes to life on social. And sometimes that does mean that we are creating and publishing content, but it is really for me more of like having a strategic mindset and developing the ability to like look at things from a very high level and then execute against those tactically and how they're, actualized on your channels. So I think in previous work, my job was like community management. I need to know how to be like a great person for customer service, and I need to have answers to questions. I need to be very detail oriented. As I've grown, I'm still using those same skills, but I'm looking at how are we adding value to our donors? How are we, giving them a particular value proposition and messaging that? So that's kind of like the short answer.
No, I love that. I mean, and there's a couple buckets here we're talking about, right? Like, so you're just Angelo and Tiffany, you're both describing specific, changes into how you're approaching your specific role, right? Either a specific company and what they need from you. So I think there's like two buckets. There's like, what does your company need you to learn? It might be customer response. It might be video. It might be, maybe they're launching Instagram and you need to get really good at Instagram reels and stories and those types of niche content creation skills. But there's also just your career, like building out what makes you marketable, what makes you, like, if you want to become a leader in above the social media team, in the marketing department, in the communications department, if you want to be a CMO one day, what skills do you need to build for your career? Or if you want to get hired at a specific company or a different company, what is going to make you more marketable just in the marketplace in general? And I'm sure some of those things overlap, but you have to decide, what to focus on, because you can't learn it all. And you really just have to understand which is going to benefit your goal. So I think having the goal is clear. One thing I'll mention is we're touching on a lot of these creative skills next week at Social Fresh 2020. So if you haven't seen the conference yet, definitely check it out. We've got a ton of great speakers. Tiffany will be joining us as one of our speakers at the conference. You can check that out at socialfresh.com/2020. And if you use coupon code office hours, you can save 10%. So definitely check that out. Azad, what do you think of the conversation we're having? What would you add as the most important skills for people to be developing, both either for their career or for their current role?
Yes, I think starting off, you just want to become a jack of all trades on all sorts of content, right? Understand video. You don't need to be a pro in After Effects, but know how to go into Photoshop and tweak something to that level. And that will get you a very far way early on in your career, because your first few jobs, you will be a team of one. In most cases, you work at a smaller company and they'll expect you to do everything. So learn your way around Adobe Suite, figure out Canva, take those skills with you. And as you're building out those skills, really lean in to learn how to tell stories and storytelling. I think on social, it's super important. And that is a skill that will translate to video, to writing, to art, to learn how to tell a great story. And then the next step, I think is really important, is to learn strategy. It's my goal to be CMO one day. And I think social media, my experience in social media really sets me up for that, because I have touched every little bit of comms and marketing already in my career. Intimately, I know it, and it's a very broad level of expertise that many marketers don't have unless they're working in social. Now, the strategy part is where you put it all together and make it work. That's where the crisis comms comes into place. That's where campaign management comes into place. That's where community management comes into place. All of that, once you figure out how to build a strategy and become a strategist, you are laying the groundwork to lead a larger team.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Tiffany.
Totally. I was just saying, I so agree with that, because even as like a community manager, there might be certain things that are suggested about how to approach a problem or how to approach an issue. And you're like, whoa. I already know how this is going to go, because I'm so in touch with our community and our audience. And so you do get so many touch points, and it really helps you to have a lens for those other functions.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm wondering if the, part of this is education, right? Nicole and I talk about this a lot, where you're unfortunately in a role in social media where most people don't know what you do, don't know how to do what you do. And the insights they have are surface. They feel like they're more informed about what you do than they actually are. They're like, yeah, you do the tweets, you do the Instagram, you do the hashtags, right? They don't see, we've got an image coming out this week of an iceberg. They see the very top. They don't see the 90 things underneath the surface, right? So how important is it to be able to educate your boss and your coworkers, and how important is to kind of cultivate them to have a better understanding of what your role is, how you can better do your job with the right support, that kind of coercion, so to speak, for your current position?
So I'd like to answer that. That's okay. So I'm in my late 20s, and I'm the youngest in the team, in the administrative team in the theater. So a lot of the older officers in my theater, they think of social media as just kind of like a little bucket, and it's kind of one of those things that you want to try to, as part of an educational purpose for myself, I've always tried to explain it from a print conversation or a editorial conversation in PR to my director of communications and marketing, and why digital and social media is so important now more than ever, especially when it comes to event management or anything that's within the arts or nonprofit world. Everything is coming in front of your screens, and people are digesting and consuming that information within various different platforms in your screens, and you all just don't know it. Even though my director of marketing communications and my general manager of the theater, they both have social media, and a bunch of other people who are in their late 50s, 60s are in social media, and they use it as kind of like a passive tool. But they're still consuming the information, regardless if it's some kind of ad or organic piece of content. They're still scrolling through and kind of still consuming that information regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's people that have worked in social for a long time, like many of you have, so much that you forget the little things that that probably 90% or more of your company has no idea, like the little, how much value it is to have these regular touch points with people on social, building trust, like all of these little, things that you may have learned 10 years ago, your CEO, your CMO, like your comms team, your PR team may not know. So finding ways to build those things into presentations or build them into meetings, or working with your team to make sure you're educating. I mean, one of the things that we do, we have a quarterly report that we do for a handful of our high-end clients, and it's bringing, what's happened in social over the last 3 months, what's the best creative over the last 3 months. It's a really big deep dive into the industry, where things stand. But we also are building in trends and summaries about how social works well for different business practices, because most of our clients invite several other teams. It's not just the social media people in the room; it's the the paid team, the people that are focused on ads, people who are focused on SEO, people who are focused on PR, and other comms teams. So we're trying to build that broader view, and I think that's really helpful when you can do that, when you can have that voice in the company that helps educate other people, so they can help you do a better job, and maybe also reduce like the number of annoying questions you might get from people suggesting a better strategy for something or something like that. What is your advice for people as far as long-term career goals in social? Is it to become head of a marketing team? Is it to just get really good at your job and get a land at a company that's going to respect that experience and expertise? What do you think is the most common or best option for people that are working in social today to look down the road?
I think we're creating that path right now, because our industry is so young and fresh that the group of people on this call right now will be 10 years down the line defining what someone who's starting social in 20 years will be. So it's really up to us, and I think it depends on personal goals. Like I want to be a CMO. That's a goal I set out for myself. I love social. I love everything about social, but I want to grow past it. But as you say that, social media is getting so big that 10 years down the line, that might be a lateral position as a CMO, as a chief social officer, because in the past year, TikTok has turned into a major player in this game. 10 years ago, when I started in the field, no idea that this would even be something that we'd be talking about. So the social strategy is becoming your primary source of lead generation and conversion for a lot of companies, especially a lot of younger companies, a lot of startups and tech companies, especially, which is arguably the future of our field. So if you really love social, get really good at it. And I think we're defining that right now. This group of people on this call in 5 years will be at higher level executive C-suite level chairs, potentially just doing social, because it is such a broad field.
Well, and that's also maybe a good career move sometimes. Maybe a little higher risk, but it's to jump over to a startup or a young company where maybe one of the first 3, 4, 5 hires is social, where you can be kind of that lead marketer, because I think startups and tech companies look at social as a very primary channel for their communication with customers and potential customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I agree that it's in progress. Like, who knows what the future holds. One of our Social Fresh friends, Tina Starkey, she was over at American Cancer Society for a little while and was in social really, really heavy, and moved on to another nonprofit, and now is leading out on overall growth, right? So what does growth for the company look like from a donor perspective, sales perspective? And I think there's just so many pathways that you can take because you have had so many touch points. So the sky is the limit. For me, I don't want to be answering complaints like at 11 o'clock at night for the rest of my life. So if that tells you anything, I would like to progress in some ways, but there are certain aspects of social that I love and I don't ever want to get away from. And so hoping that, the future is more integrated and that social is not siloed onto its own.
Yeah. And I think Tina is a CMO now. She went from social to CMO. The CMO of HubSpot started in social. Adrian Parker, who's at Patron, is global VP of marketing, which at a lot of companies would be the level of CMO, right? Started in social at Radio Shack and some other great brands. I think you're seeing a lot of that social people rising up to lead marketing roles, CMO, and obviously those teams are going to be much better supported than a team that it doesn't have someone experienced in social in charge. So it's really exciting to see that happen. What is kind of my question? Angela, do you have any build on that? Do you have a different vision on that, or is it same path?
It's kind of right now. I actually harp on this a lot with #marketing Twitter. Hi, everyone. I had a really great conversation with one of our friends and colleagues about this. And I've always said that how are we supposed to envision ourselves as CMOs or higher ups in social when we can't have a reference point? Or we don't see a reference point of someone that has highly worked in social or in digital who is currently a CMO. Yes, there are a handful of us there right now, but especially for nonprofits or like the event space or smaller organizations, they're still stuck in the traditional ways of marketing, and that in itself, if it works for you, it works for you. But it's slowly evolving. It's actually fast evolving, to be honest. And the ones that are within the digital realm can't point out a reference point of, okay, so can I really be a director? Can I really be a chief marketing officer? Yeah. Honestly, I believe I can, and I'm just manifesting that into the future now. Let it happen. But it's one of those things that some of us like reference points to see others create the pave, and some of us are willing enough to break the ceiling or create that pathways.
Yeah, and Angela, I think it's important for us in social to remember that we are creating this path. We're paving the road. So we've got to go out and take it, because there's going to be gatekeepers. The old guard is going to be there to try to, and it's not, I don't think it's personal, but to keep social and digital out of this industry and these leadership seats that they've had for years and years and decades. So it's really important for us to go out there and take it. And the way to do it is by showing your worth early on. Like working in social is 10% of tweeting and posting on Instagram and 90% of data. Build into that data, reporting up to your leadership, reporting up to your bosses, so they know what your worth is, how much, what you're converting on, how many engagements you're getting, all of that. Explain it. We're all communicators. We're communicating to our audience every day. We also have to spend a lot of time communicating to our bosses and communicating up so that we show our worth. Get baked into those quarterly reports. Make sure that social has a slide there, so that the CMOs today are seeing that and understanding and getting a full grasp that it's not just tweets. We're not just putting noise out there into a vacuum. We are actually converting, and we're creating, generating leads and all of that good stuff.
How important is it to be at the right company that allows you to kind of show your work, right? So I think part of what you're saying is, actually make sure you're included internally in conversations, doing presentations, sharing the successes. What if you're at a company that just isn't allowing you to get approval to do some of the things that you think would be a big campaign that would work, or more creative, content on Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is? Is it something, how do you make that decision of, I need to get to a new company, find a new job, a better situation where I can do more, or I just need to work harder at selling internally to get approval to do these things? Like where is that? What are your recommendations for people that find themselves in those situations right now?
Go ahead, Tiffany.
No, I was going to say, I'll speak to that a little bit, just because I think with all of the conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, one of the things that we are focusing on at Boys and Girls Clubs of America is really around inclusion and like decision-making processes and thoughts about like ideas that, get to the C-suite to actually discuss. And so as you're looking at different companies, you want to see what the culture of the leadership team is like. You want to ask those questions about inclusive decision-making, because sometimes as a social media professional, you can be like at that entry level stage, or kind of, bottom of the totem pole, but you want to be able to know that your ideas and your thoughts and your insights are going to be valued. So I think that's super important to ask those questions as you're interviewing and talking to different folks who work at those companies, so you can know what that decision-making tree and process is like.
Yeah. Love that.
I think it's important also to not be afraid to leave a company when it's not a good culture fit. For myself, I'm a kid of immigrants, and that my dad is probably like burning up if he hears me say that. But but it's a culture fit is super important for growth, especially.
Yes.
If you go into a job and you just kind of settle, then you're settled, and you're going to do that for 30 years, 40 years till you retire. And if that's the path you choose, that's totally fine. But if that's not what you want, then don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to seek another opportunity. Just always remember that, companies will get rid of you. It's a two-way street, right? Okay. So make sure you're positioning yourself for growth, and making the right decisions for you, for your professional growth.
Love that. Don't be afraid to leave. Angela?
And on top of that, all of us have our own stories to tell. Like, we're all storytellers all together. And unfortunately, if your story does not seem to fit within a company or an organization, then that's just not the right fit altogether. If it is, awesome. Like, if they're willing to hear you and listen to your story of where you're coming from and what your thought processes are from point A to point B, I would highly suggest just staying in that company. And if there are some questions of like, so if they're letting you tell your story, then tell your story. I think that's one thing that we kind of forget as marketers, because we're still in this mindset of the revenue growth of everything that's happening. Like, for me, it's ticket sales. Okay, but at the end of the day, you want to try to relate your story as yourself within the brand that you're representing, or else you don't necessarily love that brand or organization.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great positive note to kind of close us out for today's show. I will say, to add to that, also consider if you need to just wait someone out. Maybe it's one person that's causing you problems at your company, right? Sometimes you can wait someone out. Sometimes they're going to wait you out, right? So, consider, is this person going to be here in a year from now? Or is this department going to change in a year from now and 5 years from now? And if the question is things are the same, then, I think Azad's advice is don't be afraid to make a shift and to improve your station and your potential support system. So with that, I would like to...
Agencies too.
Goes for agencies too, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I love it. All right. Any closing, where can people find you online? You've all got your Twitter handles or anything that you're working on that you're excited about, you want to share with people to close us out today. Azad, we'll start with you.
Just follow me on Twitter, Instagram. My handle's right there, Yakatali. And if you can, just check out my podcast. I'm on Spotify and iTunes. It's called OK Intern. I think it's really important for people who work in social, and give me some feedback on it. Let me know how I can make it better.
Awesome. Tiffany?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at TiffRiv. Find me on LinkedIn, Tiffany Rivers, and of course, follow Boys and Girls Clubs of America on all platforms. We would love to have your support.
Awesome. I think Giving Tuesday is a great thing. And anybody that wants to check out an opportunity, if you haven't given yet, definitely check out such a great organization like Boys and Girls Clubs. Angela?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is right there. And my theater's handle is BBman, 2 N's Hall, and we're in Instagram and Twitter. And just for a side note, I actually own my husband and I just started our own integrated digital marketing agency, and It's at Joseph Phillips Creative as well.
Awesome. Congrats. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to keep these conversations going. I think we could talk a lot longer about this specific topic, so I think it'll come back up for us. And later this week, we're going to be doing shows at 1:00 on Wednesday, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. So definitely check back in at Jason Keith, Keath on Twitter, or you can check the Social Fresh Facebook or YouTube page. Thank you everyone for joining us. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please do, head over to socialfresh.com/2020 to get more information about the conference. We've got a great lineup. In addition to the amazing Tiffany Rivers from Boys and Girls Clubs of America, we also have speakers from some great companies like Lilly Pulitzer. We have Jenny's Ice Cream, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Microsoft. Tons of great speakers joining us next week, December 8th through 10th, MIT, SurveyMonkey. And these people are freaking smart people. I'm going to tell you, we review presentations from all kinds of people over 11 years now, and I'm so excited for the presentations this year. I'm learning stuff. I'm laughing at these presentations just going through the decks, and that's always a really good sign. So I hope you can join us. If you haven't already, head over to socialfresh.com/2020, use the promo code office hours and check out that schedule, pick up your ticket, and join us next week at the live conference. I'm really looking forward to it. Hope a lot of you can show up as well. All right, we will see you tomorrow. Thanks everyone to join. Take care.